Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hope. I am Tammy Lynn Connors, and this is my new friend, Martha. How are you today, Martha?
Great. Thank you for having me on, Tammy.
Thank you for jumping on here with me. Just real quick, so everybody knows what Hope is, it is helping other people evolve. It's my podcast and YouTube channel. And what my mission and vision here is just to help other people that are struggling. What I do is I interview people that have been through a struggle that have gotten to a strength. Unfortunately, in life, we all go through struggles, but fortunately, there is hope out there. And what my vision is just to help somebody get out of bed that day, to help somebody know that they're not struggling alone, that other people have went through a struggle, but they've gotten to a strength and to a hope. So I heard a little bit of Martha's story last week. She's in a book called Faith, Failure, Success. Geez, now I just forgot what was it?
Being the storm.
Surviving the storm. See, I told you I mess up on that every time, and I sure enough I had that like stage fright. But I'm super excited. She has a chapter in this book, and if you guys once you hear her story, you're going to want to get the book because there's other chapters in there too of other people that have went through a struggle to get to a strength. So Martha, I'm super excited for you to share your story of hope with us today. You can go ahead and start wherever it is that you want to start with your story.
Okay, great. So, Faith, Failure, Success, Volume 2, Surviving the Storm, is an anthology of 6 different authors. Each of us share our independent story. None of them have anything to do with one another. They're just independent stories. My chapter is called The Beginning. And what I find is that in order for you to start something new and get a new beginning, you have to be courageous enough to let go of the old and of the past.
Mm.
So my story starts off literally with me being a baby in diapers all the way up to almost present day.
Okay.
Just all of the different things that I've gone through. A lot of people go through a storm. Once you read my story, you will realize that most of my life has been one continuous storm. And it was basically a calling on my heart. I was called to write this story. I was terrified to write it because with a lot of people who have been through traumas and violated in one way or another, the ugly story in our head is that it's our fault. Yes. And you're full of shame and you're full of, depression and anxiety and all these different things, just believing that this was all your fault. And then, as you stated earlier in your intro, feeling like you're all alone.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly felt for the better part of my life that I was all alone. Nobody cared. I was never going to get out of this depression or this anxiety, this big storm. But as I leaned into God and as I leaned into my faith, He was able to walk me through, order my steps, and guide me to getting not only out of the storm, but just thriving through the latter part of it, to be able to figure out who I am in the world, what I was created to do. And I honestly wrote this story not for myself, but for you, for the person out there that's suffering, for the person out there that's depressed or anxious or scared or hurting or broken in any way. I've been through all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just here to share some hope, to let you know that storms don't last always and that there is something on the other side if you just stick it out, if you just even sometimes it's not even day by day. Sometimes it's hour by hour or minute by minute. And there were many, many, many times where I literally felt like I could not go on. Times where I thought about taking my life. Times that I thought this is just the way it's always going to be. But I'm the testimony standing here today to tell you that that's not the case. That there is a moment where you can push through. You can get to the other side. And on the other side of the storm is hope and joy. Mm-hmm. True joy and peace and love and forgiveness. So you'll find all of those things in my story, which is, again, just a chapter in the book. And the name of my chapter is called The Beginning.
Awesome. Awesome. So you say that you struggled most of your life with storms. I can totally relate with you with that because I also have like that too, and probably in the last I don't know. I've been sober 17 and a half years. So probably though in the last, I would say 6, 7 years is when I finally started finding my own hope and getting through those struggles, and I just like, when we say that we go through the struggles and we feel so alone, And like you said, you felt so alone. And what do you think finally helped you to realize that, I mean, I know you said leaning on God, but something must have led you to that. Like, was it a breaking point, or was it just one day you were like, okay, I'm worth more than this, was that, is that kind of what happened?
I mean, it was sort of a series of things.
Mm-hmm.
But what finally got to me, the year that I turned, oh my gosh, what would have been 47?
Okay.
So almost 4 years ago, I just got to the end of myself. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't anything that happened that hadn't happened before or whatever. It was just, I was so tired of repeating the same patterns over
Yes.
and over again. Got to the point where I'm just like, I cannot continue to do this anymore. I can't
Mhm.
continue to take those same steps that lead to the same result, that lead to more brokenness and more hurt and more pain and more despair. At some point, like, you just have to get sick of yourself and you have to say, you know what, this is enough. Like, there's got to be something else that I'm not doing, or something that I've been rejecting or been afraid to try, maybe. Um,
Mhm.
but I was just sick of myself. I was sick of the
Mhm.
same result and same type of person, and with a new name and a new face, but just continuing the same patterns, and always ending up more broken and more desperate and in more despair than when I started. So that was sort of my breaking point, was just being sick of going through the same thing over and over again.
Yes, yes, I agree with that. Like sick and tired of being sick and tired, and just like you said, doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same results. I love what you said, with a different face and a different name, but getting the same thing, because that is what happens. And I believe a lot of it, you made a point too, the lies that we tell ourselves, the truth that we believe, our story of ourselves. And then we get that in our head. Like you said, I mean, I don't know, honestly, what tragedies and struggles that you went through, but when and I don't know if it's a lot of people in our world that maybe were narcissists or what, but it always turned it around to be our fault. No matter what, it was our fault, and I mean, at times, of course, we have consequences for things that we do, but most of the time, the lies that we are telling ourselves weren't our fault, and people make us feel that way. And I feel like being able to step out and say that, no, it wasn't our fault. We didn't deserve to have that happen to us, and I know I was in a domestic violence relationship where every time I turned around, it was always, somehow it was my fault that I just got my head hit up against the wall. And then I believed it for a while, and so I just think that the power of our mind is huge. And what you said, like when you stopped believing the lies that you were telling yourself, you know.
Right. I think one of the biggest things for me, was figuring out not only that it wasn't my fault, because it wasn't. I mean, one of the main points of the story is that my earliest memory in life is of my grandfather sexually abusing me when I was in diapers, literally like a toddler, maybe not even 2 years old.
Wow.
And then that sexual abuse just escalated and escalated and escalated to the point where it turned on to full on rape.
Hmm.
And so that happened from the age of 2 till about 6 when we moved. I was born in Mexico. So when we finally moved to the US the year that I was about to turn 7, that's, all of those years I had gone through that with him.
Wow.
And then other people, because once you become a victim and once you become traumatized, it just kind of becomes a pattern for you. You don't realize that this is the way life is.
Right.
You don't realize that there's another choice. You don't realize that you even have the right to say no.
Hmm.
Um, and I've been, kind of, to be honest with you, people have through the years said, well, why did you keep like going by him? I'm like, I was a little toddler. I didn't know any better.
Right.
Know? And then it reminded me, I saw a story one time that was talking about how elephants are trained to be in the circus.
Hmm.
When they're the tiniest little baby elephants, they tie a rope around them and put them a stake to the ground so they can't move. And then they continue to like hit them with whips and do other things to make them, docile and afraid of their trainers.
Yes.
And of course, they can't move. They're stuck to that stake and they cannot leave. They can't walk away. They're stuck there. And so even as the elephant begins to grow and grow and grow and become so strong and so powerful that they could literally, with one whip of their nose or even just one little stamp of their foot, they could kill the trainer. They don't, because they're so powerless where in their mind.
Right.
They're
Right.
powerless in their mind against that oppressor. And of course, that tiny little stake is nothing. They could just rip it out and run away, but they don't, because they don't know that they can.
Right.
Not aware that they're powerful enough to break the stake out of the ground and walk away, that they're powerful enough to overcome that oppressor and to say, no more, you're not going to hurt me. And so when you grow up in an environment, when something happens to you, either from a very young age or whatever age, just repeated trauma, you literally begin to believe in your mind that you're powerless, that
Right.
there's nothing you can do, that it's just the way it is, or that, again, somehow it's your fault. You brought it on yourself. You weren't perfect enough. You weren't good enough. You weren't pure enough, whatever it may be. And so when you've gone through this for such a long time, you just walk through life surviving, not really living. And these things, you almost attract it.
Mm-hmm.
You attract these types of abusers because they could see it right in your face. It's like something's written across your forehead, like, I won't tell, or I won't defend myself, or, I'm so broken that you can just come along and do anything you want to me.
Yes.
And the hardest thing for me was growing up with that and always feeling like it was my fault, feeling like that dirtiness, that filth, that, somehow I must have done something to bring this on myself, or whatever, So once I was able to break through, God brought me through that. That's not who you are. That's not who I created you to be.
Right.
Leaned on him, got my strength, and was able to break through to the other side of that. But it
Oh,
was a 40-year journey to get to that point,
right.
So
Yeah.
it wasn't easy.
You just said something that triggered to me when you talked about having that across your forehead. So for years, and I never really thought of it that way, but it's true. I used to say, people be like, "Well, why haven't you been in a relationship for a long time?" And I'm like, because I like have this magnet that I just attract the wrong people, right? So now that you say that, it was a magnet, really. I mean, like you said, written across, we wear it. We might not know we wear it, but we do. And those abusers, they see it. Boy, they can attract that like that so quickly. So you saying that that's very powerful, because it's so, I mean, I said it for years, but I never really looked at it like that. It was like they know, when I attract them. So I also love what you said about I mean, not love the part that you had to say that, but for so many years, you kept it to yourself because of the shame, the guilt, not knowing, just that's what we feel. But I'm just happy that now people, I feel like more in this day and age, are actually sharing their struggles, because in my generation, so I'm 57. Oh gosh, I'm not. I'm 56. 57. I just aged myself a year. Usually I'm telling people I'm 32. I'm 56, and growing up, my mom was always, don't say anything, don't tell anybody, what will the neighbors think, all of that. So for so many years, we keep, I assume that you did too, because you said that we keep our voice quiet and we keep it to ourselves. And we do feel like we're the only ones, because if it was something that somebody else is going through, we would be able to share it and talk to somebody else. And now I feel with women and men opening up and sharing their struggles, it is helping so many people to not know that they're alone, that we were alone, where we were never alone. There's so many people out there, and we might not have the same struggles, but somebody out there is struggling with this. And that's what I hope, that you sharing your story will help somebody else know that, hey, I can contact Martha or Tammy and reach out and maybe get a little bit of hope.
Yes, absolutely. One of the biggest things that I was so grateful to have understood and seen is just turning the shame thing and turning it on its heel.
Yes.
So if somebody, for example, was run over by a car, they wouldn't say, I'm so ashamed that I was run over by a car. I feel so guilty that I got in front of that car, right?
Right.
So why are we groomed to say that we feel shame and we feel guilt when somebody does harm to us?
Hmm.
When somebody either abuses us or takes advantage of us, or, you're in a relationship where they verbally abuse you or physically abuse you, or whatever it is, that anyone, even a friend, it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship, where
Right.
they continually mistreat you or take advantage of you. We feel shame when people do things to us, and that's just the enemy telling us in our head that somehow it's our fault.
Hmm.
But when I finally realized, there's a piece in my book where I say that God tells me, use your voice, use your voice, use your voice. And it's saying it out loud, not just, I mean, you have to say it in order for it to lose power against you.
Hmm.
You know, something can only be powerful when it's hitting in the dark and you're the only one that knows about it. But when you start to speak on it and start to say, you know, this happened, and take power back, if you will, by using it and talking to others, and then you can find that commonality with someone else, and then you can band together hand by hand and say, well, let's help each other. And, you know, then we get more and more and more. Suddenly there's, you know, millions of us banded together saying we are going to fight against this, and we are not powerless, we're powerful.
Right.
And with one sentence, think about this, with one sentence we could break the lies of that person who hurt us.
Yes.
Right? You could ruin somebody's life literally with one sentence and saying, this person did this to me. And the life that they've created, this facade of I'm such a good person or whatever, could literally be broken with one sentence coming out of your mouth.
Hmm.
Right? So it's not to say that we want to turn around and hurt other people back, but this is just to emphasize the power that we have when we finally speak on what happened to us, you know, and get rid of that guilt and get rid of that shame and just say, you know what, that happened, but it wasn't my fault. And I'm not going to take responsibility for somebody else's misdeeds against me.
Yes. Yes. That's powerful. I just shared, I don't know if you know who Maya Angelou is.
I do. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I just shared a thing on Facebook. It was a little video about her. And this reminded me of that because I think she was raped at 4 years old. She was very young.
But I know that it was young, very young.
Yes. And I know that the man that did it told her that if she said anything, that he would kill her brother. And eventually she ended up saying something because her brother said, he's not going to kill me. Well, the man ended up going to jail. And then the next day when he got out, he was beaten to death. And Maya Angelou thought it was her fault because that he died because she spoke out. So she didn't speak for like 3 years. She
Mm,
wouldn't talk. She would write things down, but she wouldn't speak because
wow.
she thought her voice had done that to that man. Well, eventually she worked with a lady and the lady got her to speak again. And the power of her words coming out of her mouth then were amazing of how many lives she changed. But it's just thinking that the power that we have is unbelievable. But the power that our mind has is unbelievable. And if we believe all the lies that go into our head, we will never speak our power. So I love a quote, and I quote him a lot on here. It's David Goggins, and he says, we need to control our mind and not let our mind control us. And
Mm-hmm.
I always say it's easier said than done. But once you can start doing that and you start feeding your mind with the positive and the good and learning that the things that we did, we didn't. I love your analogy of getting run over by a car. You know, it's so true. We didn't jump in front of that car for it to run over us, but we didn't jump in front of a person to abuse us.
Right.
You know, and the grooming part that you talked about too is huge. You know, when you said that people say to you, well, why'd you keep going around him? And you explain the elephant story, you were groomed like that. It wasn't, you
I mean, this
know,
is your grandfather. You're not supposed to be afraid of your grandfather. You're not supposed
right,
to be afraid to go and you know, and it does, it's just people don't understand that the abuse doesn't happen from one second to the next. It's not like how you see on TV where this assailant walks up to a woman and throws her on the ground and rapes her. Like clearly, you know, that would be a very clear, oh, I would never go down that alley again.
right.
This is a trusted person, whether it's in your family or your neighbor or whoever. These are people that little by little by little over the course of time gain your trust. And again, you're a child or you're vulnerable in some way, you know, and they little by little before you know it, something big happens, but it didn't happen overnight. So you don't realize that you were going down this dark alley. You don't realize that there's danger on the other side of those niceties that they play,
Mhm.
you know, in the forefront. And it's the same thing with in adult relationships. You know, if I've dated narcissists, you alluded to that earlier, I mean, that was the same guy in a different face with a different name. They were all narcissists in some way. And I, being so broken and such a lover of people and wanting to be accepted and having such literally not even low self esteem, there was a big point in my life where I had no self esteem whatsoever. And so these predators see that. They know that you're the kind of person that they can take advantage of. I don't know what it is, but they see it, you
Yeah.
know? Um, and so even in being in a romantic relationship, they don't beat you up on day one.
Right.
It's such a gradual thing that before you know it, you're getting knocked around. Before you know it, you're being choked. Before you know it, you're being like verbally broken down to the point where you can't even function.
Right.
And if you've never been in it, you don't understand.
Right.
But again, here I am to tell you that even though I have been in those situations, I am on the other side of that now. And it is possible to get out. It is possible to heal. It is possible to find joy and peace and love again. But it takes just one step at a time.
Mm. Yes. Yes. And when you say that, I mean, think about it this way then. When you just said that one step at a time, it took one step at a time to get you to that point of breaking, right? And you said you and I just have so much vibes in common. Like when you said not low self-esteem, no self-esteem, I was there too, like no self-esteem. And I've had to build that. But like you said, step by step by step. And as you're building that, you might get knocked down a step or two, but just realize that you can get back up to that next step. I feel like life is such a journey and it's step by step by step. And if you fall down, it's okay as long as you learn from it and get back up. I think the biggest thing that people struggle with is they get knocked down and they don't want to get back up again. And you're living proof right here that I'm sure that you got knocked down when you were going through that step by step by step. But here you are saying, nope, I'm going to keep going and I'm going to keep going because I feel like with women, especially, and I know men go through it too, but when we've been knocked down to that no self-esteem and we start building ourselves up, we have to remember that if we're strong enough to take that first step, we're strong enough to take every step because we have been broken and beaten to the point of not wanting to even get out of bed.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, but you know what? It's just, I always say I'm either winning or I'm learning, but I don't lose.
Good.
Because if something happened to me and I didn't win, but I learned something from it, then that's still a win.
Yes.
And now I know where the pitfalls are. And now I know where the stumbling blocks are. And now I can take that knowledge and start over again with that knowledge and get around it and maneuver a little bit better. And yeah, I might trip again. I might fall again because we're human and things are going to happen. But every time you start over, you're starting over with that new knowledge, and that new wisdom and that new resilience. And you're not starting over from scratch. You're starting over from the place of, okay, I know all of that. I know how to avoid all of that. Now I'm learning some new skills so that I don't fall backwards. And if there's something that's going to trip me up in my future, hopefully I'll be able to see it before it happens, and I'll be able to avoid it easier than I did in my past, where I would fall so easily or trip so easily.
Yes.
So we
Yes.
start from a place of resilience and
Yes.
experience.
And what? I'm sorry.
Experience. You start
Yes.
from a place of experience, not from scratch.
Yes, yes. I love what you just said that anything that you go through, it's learning, winning.
I
Yes,
never
learning or
lose.
winning. And even if you, like you said, even if you didn't win at that point, you learned something so you can go on and win. Life, like you said, is full of experiences, good, bad, great, ugly, all the things, but it's what we do with all of those experiences, to better our life, but also to better others' lives. I feel like with me, and it kind of sounds like you too by sharing your story, my mission is to help other people. That's all I want to do. I just want people to know that they can get through these struggles. They can get there to a strength. It doesn't mean that you're going to be writing a book or you're going to be, I don't know, a coach or whatever, but if you can just get yourself to a point where you feel better about yourself, I think that's a big thing in life.
Absolutely. And, I've had people ask me, why would you want to talk about this? It's such an ugly story. It's such a horrible thing. What do you gain from talking about it? And I said, well, I don't gain anything from talking about it. At the beginning, I couldn't even muster a word. Just the
Mm.
thought of what happened to me would break me down to the point where I couldn't even talk. Even if I wanted to tell you what happened to me, I would be crying so hard and uncontrollably, I couldn't get a word out.
Mm.
And so being able to start to tell the story, you get to the point where you can tell it from a place of power and from a place of strength, and no longer from a place of brokenness and a victim's place.
Right.
But again, what do I gain from telling it? I gain, hopefully, that somebody else doesn't have to suffer the way I suffered, that somebody else doesn't have to go through 4 decades of silence and suffering before they finally break through. I'm being what I wish somebody would have been for me in my
Mm.
teen years.
Yes.
So that's why I'm telling the story. I gain nothing, from telling it. But my whole entire goal is to help somebody who feels hopeless, to know that there is, something on the other side of all of this pain, and that you're not going through it for no reason.
Yes, yes. And it's so I I feel like the exact same way as what you just said. When I first started sharing, like I said, my mom was always like, "How dare you tell people about all that?" And I'm like, "Mom, when I get a message from somebody that says thank you because of you, I was able to quit drinking, let's just because of my alcoholism, and or I get a message like I've lost a son, to SIDS, and I get that message from that mom that says, thank you for what you do because you helped me get through my day today. And that's all I feel like we're out here doing. And I can't wait. My book won't be here till like November 30th and or December 30th. I can't wait for it to get here. I'm like, can't you get here earlier? But I can't wait to read your story in there and all the other ladies' stories. I know the
Yes.
book is available on Amazon. I'm pretty sure Barnes and Nobles, Target, um,
Everywhere books are sold,
everywhere
basically.
books are sold. It's awesome. I'm excited to read it. I'm excited for our friendship to grow. I appreciate you getting on here today. Is there anything that you'd like to, say to close it up?
I would just say that, we started the show and you were talking about how people make different choices, and it leads up to sometimes bad, consequences.
Mhm.
And again, that shame and that guilt that comes with that. And what I just would like for you to take away from this, whoever it is that's listening, is that sometimes, even though, yes, we are the ones making the choices that lead to bad results or really strong consequences, what helped me was digging way deep into myself to ask myself, what is it about me that's making me make that choice?
Mm, that's good.
Something's there, something's triggering for me to go down that road, even though I know that's going to be harmful or hurtful or it's going to have a bad outcome. Why do I keep doing that? And so when I was able to just break it down, and it's not an easy thing to look at, you're pulling back the curtain on some really potentially ugly, dark, horrible, hidden, rotten things that are inside of you, but you cannot change what you won't confront.
Mm,
You have to confront it. That's a quote from Bishop T.D. Jakes, who I give a lot of love and props in the book in the intro. Um, you cannot change what you will not confront. We have to confront it, and we have to dig deep, and we have to look. And so my teen years were full of a lot of really like, whoa, you might see somebody in their teen years that are just out there like doing crazy stuff.
mhm.
Like, why are you doing that? What's wrong with you? Well, let's
Yes.
go back and look at everything I've been through from 2 to 14. And
Hmm.
that'll give you a glimpse as to why I'm now reacting to life instead of sitting there, just waiting for things to happen to me. But when I try to take control back in my teen years, I obviously wasn't wise enough to do it in a healthy way. So I am strong enough now in my mind to understand that there's very different types of addictions. When
Hmm.
you're hurting and when you're broken and when you're in despair, you want to fill that void with something, anything to make you feel better. For
Yes.
some people, that's alcohol. For other people, that's drugs. For me, I just wanted somebody to love me. I wanted somebody to tell me they cared about me. I
Hmm.
wanted somebody to put their arms around me and say, it's going to be okay. And so while I wasn't addicted to, substances, I was addicted to the high, if you will, of attention and the high
Yes.
of telling me that they loved me and they cared about me, even though it was a lie. Even though they
Mm.
were saying it to me just to use me for that little moment, I got the high. A little moment, I got my fix, and I kept going back for it. So there's different types of addiction. There's different types of things. But when I dug super deep to understand, where did the behavior come from? why do you do the things you do? Then I was able to then take control and stop the behavior because then
Mm,
I now understood it. Therefore, I could control it.
yes.
What would be my encouraging word for you is to don't be afraid to look.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to confront it. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Ask for help.
Mhm.
Ask for help. It's
Yes.
okay to need help. You don't have to do this alone. There are plenty of people out there, just like me, just like Tammy, who do care, who do love you, who won't judge you, who won't look down on you, who are just here to help.
Yes. That's I love that you just ended with that because I say that a lot to people like reach out for help. It's okay. And like I said, it might not be the same thing that we went through, but still just reach out for help. There are people out there's so many people out in this world that want to help. I feel like right now in our world the last couple of years it's been more of we see the negative in everything and we just need more people out here showing the positive and it's okay to ask for help. And I strongly talk about this with men as we're women sitting here too, but with men too. I think that men were told, you don't reach out for help. And I interview quite a few men, and I love when they come out with their struggles to offer another person hope. And I just love I mean, I'm sorry that you went through your struggles, but I'm so grateful that you're here to share it with us all. And I can't wait. I always tell everybody that I interview that I can't wait again to interview you again. I am doing my 50 states of hope, so I'm traveling to every state. So I would love to meet up with you when I get back to Illinois,
Of course.
because I'll be going there in the spring again. So
Nice. Yeah, don't come in February. That's
no, I
no.
won't. I won't. Believe me, I'm from Michigan. I'm in Arizona right now. I'm from Michigan. I get all that stuff. I'm good with the sunshine I got right now. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up for today. I appreciate you jumping on Hope with us today. And everybody, I appreciate you tuning in. Stay tuned for our next episode. And I hope you all will have a Merry Christmas because this will be before that. Take care.